Alright, in this video we're going to look at how we do some adding and counting using arrays. So this one it does get a little bit tricky as we're getting further on into the end of kind of using arrays. First I'm going to see how can I populate an array just all on its own, because it's going to get a little bit tedious having to type in stuff all the time. You saw in the one example how I can get people to input their names in. Now I just want to put a bunch of random numbers into an array and do something. So my array is just going to be called all numbers. So that's what I'm going to use as an empty array. So it's completely blank. And first I want to populate that array. Now how I'm going to do that is I'm going to push a random integer into it. Now because I'm using random again and again, it feels like maybe I should actually make a function for that. So we're going to do a generate random number function. Oops. Generate random number. My IDE made, stop making, there we go. Function. Okay, so I'm going to call it a random integer. So int. And what I want this to do is I want to pull a random number from 13, or we're not even going to do parameters at this point in this to start anyway. So I'm going to get a number. So I'm going to store it in let num. And it's the same thing. It's math.floor. Just feels like we use this so much, we should just make a function out of it. I'll do math.random. So that's going to get me something between 0 and 1. And in our case right now, I'm going to want 13 random numbers. Now we'll make this into a parameter afterwards. We do need to know what the minimum is. So we'll do plus 2 here. So we'll say we want the bottom to be a 2. And then 13 numbers higher from that. So that's where that 13 is coming in. So this should be from 2 to 15. That should be good. And then I'm just going to return that num. So when I run this function, it's going to return some number. Meaning right now, if I go console.log and I go rand int, it should, I need some brackets there. It should return some number here that's random between 2 and 15. So we've got 3, 6, 7, 7. Getting lots of low numbers. Oh, there's 14. Okay, so it's working good. Now it might be nice if I could actually tell the computer, hey, I want between these numbers as a parameter. So I'm going to do the first one is going to be my range. And so this is how far of a range I have between the numbers. And then I want a minimum. And so this is my minimum number that I want. So now if I wanted a range of like 10 numbers and I wanted the minimum number to be 1, it should work. So I get 5, 9, 4. But if I change this to, I want a range of 99 numbers where the bottom number is 50, I should also get some much, much larger numbers. And there you go. So quite a large range we've already seen. And the bottom of it, our minimum, is 50. So perfect. So our rand int is working how we think it is. Now, how do I populate the array? So let's go back to that. So I'm going to use a for loop. So we're going to do let I equals 0. And I want this to be based off of, I can't base it off of my array right now because my array is empty. So in our case for now, I'm going to have to tell it how big to be. I'm going to just say it's 13 right now. And I++. Okay, so each time it does it, it goes through this loop. What I want it to do is I want it to go into that array, all.numbers, and I want to push, so I'm going to add something to that array. And what I'm going to add to it is my rand int. Now I do have to give it some parameters. I'm going to put some spaces here just so you can see kind of better what's happening. So I want a range, well I want 13 numbers. Let's just do a range of like 20 where the bottom number is 10. And then after that's all done, so now not inside the for loop because I only want the console log to happen once. I just want a log to see how well it's working or to make sure it is actually working. So all numbers, and let's just run that. So you can see now I have an array that's 20, range of 20, bottom number is 10, and every time I run, it repopulates it all over again. Okay, so these could be grades, whatever it happens to be. So there's step 1. But what if I wanted to add these up? Like what if this was my marks for a class? I hope that's not my marks for a class. So let's let's make this a little bit higher range. Let's go 40 range, and everybody passed at least. Okay, so let's say this is my class. There we go. There's some more realistic marks. And I want to know, I don't know. I want to know what the average is of all of these marks. Well, the first thing I'd have to do is actually add them all up and then divide by the amount of marks I have. So we're going to count the array, or add the array. All right. So to add my array, I'm going to have to make another variable. So I'm going to call it let count. And to start, it's at 0. Or maybe we could even say sum, but sum might be used up depending on what library we're using. And then I need to use a for loop again. So I'm getting a little tired of writing this out over and over. I'm going to copy and paste that. So there's my for loop. Now, in this case, we do actually know how big our array is. So it's going to be all numbers dot length. That way, if I do decide to make it more people, so more than 13, that we don't have to go through each line of the code. So we got let I plus plus, perfect. Now we no longer want to do this though. So what do I want to do? Each time we go through this array, I want to add whatever is currently in the array to the count. So that's why I'm going to go count plus equals. Now that means I'm going to go all numbers, I, so it's going to go through every single element, because we're putting I there, and it's going to add whatever it's equal to the current count. So I'm going to just console.log. Well, actually, you know what? I'm going to log it each time so you can see what's happening. So console.log count. Now to make it, I don't think there's anything else I want to delete yet. No, I still want that showing up. So we can see the first time it goes through the loop, it adds 53. So 0 plus 53 is 53. The second time through, it's going to add 88. So 53 plus 88 is 141. Then it's going to go through the loop again and add the third, or the second index, but third number, so 53. And every time we go through, it's adding to our count. So now that I have that, I could easily find the average then. I could just go console.log, and I could do my count divided by however many elements I have. Now the only problem here though is my length. Oh no, that's not going to be a problem for this one, so we're good. My length will actually count. It's not how many index and the length are not equal. My brain messed it up for a second. So the total amount divided by the length of it should get me my average. So so the average mark for this group was 60, basically 61. And I could floor that if I wanted to know if it was an integer, so I could go math.floor. Give some spaces, unnecessary. I'll need another bracket there. There we go. Okay, so the average is 69, 68. And you can see I can instantly, on this random set of numbers, figure out what the average is, which is great. What though if I wanted to know a certain thing about this group? So like I want to know how many people got honors. Well, that's going to look a little different then. So I'm going to delete this console log. I don't really care about this anymore. And determine honors. Now this could be anything. Like I'm just saying it's marks because we're in school. Again, I'm going to do another count actually. So I'll let count honors. And again, we'll start at 0. We'll do another for loop. So I'm just going to copy that. So everything here is the same. We still want to go through it for each one. And this time it's count honors going up each time. Now what do we want to do? We only want this to go up if the person has over 80. So as soon as you hear if, it makes me think, hey, we need to do an if statement. So I'm going to say if all numbers dot, or sorry, not dot, I, so my index I, because it's going to go through, iterate through each one, is greater than 79. So we'll say if you get 80 exactly, you're okay to be part of this, you get an honors. What do I want to happen? I want my count honors to go up by 1. So I could go plus equals 1, or I could just type in plus plus. Both things will just increase it by 1 each time. And then after we've done all of these for loops, not in the loop again, I want to do console.log, and I want to see how many people had honors. So we can see it says 2. Let's double check that it's working correctly. So 85, 89. It might even be helpful actually to put this in here for you. So you can see no matter what, it's going to log the honors part. And so, we got a lot here this time. Let's do a little less. Okay. So the first time it goes through the loop, 61 is not greater than 79. So it says 0 still. 65 is not, still 0. 80 is. So now it's actually going into this loop and doing the count honors plus plus. And then it keeps on doing this for the whole length. The nice thing about how I've coded all of this though, no class is 13. So all I have to do, this is the only thing right here where I have how many people. And I could actually make a variable for this. Let student num equal 13. So my length at the very top, this is what's pushing everything into the array, and this is deciding how many things are in the array. After that, we just use the length of it the whole time. So I can actually go student num. Now it shouldn't change because I said it was 13 still, but what if I said we now have more realistically 35? So now we've got this whole class. Let's see if we can get this all into 1. No, it's not going to print that out for me like that. It's all into 1, and it'll still count how many have honor. So 11 out of those 35. All right. And you can change that number to whatever you want. This would be much more useful if I've got 1,000 students. And it's much, much faster than anything else. And this code would stay identical, which is the nice part. All right. Now, so far we've only done numbers. It would be nice to do something else. So I'm going to count. I'm going to get rid of all of these console logs, because that's not helping me anymore. So actually all that code above is useless. And now we're just going to do counting number of roses. So I'm going to make an array that has let flowers equal to, and just put in some different flowers. So like maybe this is a survey. One person's is Daisy, the next person is Rose. Maybe the next person also liked roses. We could have Daffodil. And maybe the last person also liked roses. Now, this survey probably isn't only 5 people. This survey might be 1,000,000 people, 1,000 people. So it would be nice to know how many of each. I'm just going to care about 1. So I'm just going to do a let rows total. And again, to start, 0. And I want to count how many there is of that. So I'm going to use I'll type a new for loop. There's too many things I have to change. So again, we'll do our let I equals 0. We want to go through this whole array. So I'll do flowers dot length. And I didn't type my I is less than flowers dot length. And then I plus plus. There we go. So what I want to happen, I only want the rows total to go up if the person said rows. So I'm going to do if flowers in that element. So I is equal to rows. Ooh, I got them all capital. It needs to be capital too then. What do I want to happen? I want the rows total to get bigger by 1. So plus plus. If it's not, I don't want anything else to happen. Well, you know what? I'll console log each time just to show you that it's actually working correctly. And we'll just do the rows total. Rows total. There we go. So again, it should only increase it if the person says rows in that element. So if I hit run, you can see the first one is Daisy, so it stays at 0. The next person says rows, so it increases to 1. Next person says rows, so it increases to 2. Daffodil, so it stays as 2. And then rows, so we got 3 people. Now you probably don't want it console logged out each time, so if that's the case, we're going to get rid of it inside the for loop. And right after the for loop, we'll say, hey, what did I find out for the rows total? So now it's only showing up once. Perfect. And I think that is all I want to say for that. Other than the fact that we don't have to just say, hey, rows total. We could say, hey, the rows total is is, and then space, and then our plus, and concatenate this to make it a little bit nicer looking. So the rows total is. The nice thing again about how we've coded this, if I surveyed someone else and they also said Daisy, I wouldn't have to change any other code. It would still run, no problems. I could add one more. I could say, hey, the last person wanted a rows as well, and it goes up to 4. And that is it.